and community that's eager to collaborate, and a simple way for viewers to support creators financially. So, welcome once again to HAP. Richie V, what's going on with you in COVID Central? It's been
COVID
a while.
Central, staying away from COVID Central. First, I'm going to say, I'm going to hope that we have someone who's watching us, who knows us from our other late night parents broadcasts and
Yep.
podcasts and radio shows. Thank you for joining us. Thanks for following us. We miss you. I mean, yeah, I know. We have been I have been kind of out of pocket like the better part of the last year as we've transitioned, and of course COVID's hit us all and hit us hard. But we're still here, we're still doing well, still maintaining life as we always have, just haven't been broadcasting as much. But I am well, family's well. I mean, COVID world had some get hit with it. Fortunately, no one got hurt, got seriously ill. Everyone recovered completely. So, thank God for that. I'm fine. Family's wife is good. All good on this side of the world. How about you?
Everyone's good. Everyone's good. It's different because when you have my son is going to be 14 and my daughter is turning 19, they feel like they're superheroes.
Right. Nothing can hurt me.
Nothing could hurt me. And I'm like, that's not the truth. It's the farthest thing from the truth. So you spend enough time speaking with them about, going out and hanging out amongst their friends, but understanding at the same time we were both their age,
right.
And dealing with an issues that they have to deal with today. They're used to, hanging with the friends, but for the most part, this has worked out because for my son, he's been in a virtual world playing, his friends on Xbox and everything else like that. So that hasn't changed. But my daughter is more, into her friends and everything else like that. That's just been kind of a headache because, you're explaining this stuff to her and I'm like, you do get what we're trying to say here, don't you?
And the answer mostly is probably no, because I'm looking at it like, okay, so how many people out there, adults, not getting political at all, or trying not to, right? How many people out there that are saying that, no, it's not real, no, this is not an issue, no, you don't have to worry about it? I mean, of course, there was, the legitimate questions at the beginning of, do the youth even have to worry about it? Age, we already know, is definitely an active factor in this. But how do you get them to understand that, it's not just a cold, it's not just the flu. You can get it, the potential is there for you to get ill enough so this really seriously affects you. And like you said, for a 19-year-old girl who wants to hang out with her friends like every other 19-year-old girl, and there's nothing wrong with that in and of itself, how do you really get them to understand that, nah, you got to be careful, you can't be out there running around, you got to do the social distancing. And especially now where the numbers in our areas are ticking up, how do you really enforce to them that, hey, you might need to just take a backseat and chill here?
It's true. It's true. I mean, it's hard. But for the most part, they do get it.
Good.
But it feels like, you're explaining yourself over and over and over again, where you're sitting here and you're stating the reason why, hey, all of your friends used to be able to come over last year.
Right.
But that's not an option now. I don't know. It's hard to the extent. I mean, they do get it, but sometimes they do just seem to forget.
Right. Well, that's like anyone. Everyone, you want to do the right thing, but especially at that age or those ages, everyone's going to have a lapse of judgment. and slip and forget to pull the mask up walking into the room, or you're gonna just run up and give your friend a hug, or you're not gonna shake hands. There's gonna be something that you'll forget. I think that's more human nature than anything else.
Yeah, it's true. That's true. So it's good things that are happening. We're hearing a lot about the vaccine, and from Moderna and Pfizer and everything else. A little concerning about the doses and the news as we get it. There's concern about what kind of the after effects of this. You can't drink alcohol for 2 months, or you can't do this, or if you have extreme allergies, you're being told not to take it.
Oh, see, I haven't heard that yet. I haven't been following all this initial news very deeply, only because I think one, so much is going to come out fast and furious. You have different information based on the different provider, the different manufacturer. You have what they're still learning about it day by day as they get more and more return and more results. And then, like you said, there's so many issues and questions on, well, one, how are they physically going to get this around and deployed to as many people as possible? They are now starting to figure out or determine or establish who will be the first ones to receive it. We got family members who are in healthcare, and also being cared for, and first responders, the elderly, those in the nursing homes, they'll be the first ones to get it. So that's good news to hear, but still, you kind of wonder, well, will those first ones to get it be like round 2 of trials without anyone really knowing? Will they be, deeply following that group just to see what any after effects are, or if there's any change to the protocols on how it's given? You got to worry about all those things. And then, like you said, every other day now, you kind of hear a little different information about, all right, well, you get it, but you're going to have to get another within a month, or you get it, but you're going to feel sick like you had the flu for a couple of days afterwards, and that's just a side effect. Or like you said, you have to control your drinking or whatever other intake possibly. And I'm sure there'll be other things we learn about that as time goes on. But regardless, as long the good news also does seem that day by day, as the results come in from testing, I don't think any of the manufacturers has reported less than like a 70% success rate, which is fantastic. Was it Pfizer's was saying 90% effective rate?
Right.
So light at the end of the tunnel. I mean, still, and regardless of the effective rate of what is being given, again, it's going to take months to get this into everyone's hands until you get to what some call the herd immunity, to where we're at the point where, there's enough people who have been immunized where it can block and control transmission to someone who's not immunized. So we've got time still. We're looking at 6 months before this is, really under control. So we're still looking at the summer.
There's an article on New York Times that we're going to republish on, portions of it on latenightparent.com, where you can see where you fit, what's your number. Like, I'm like number 248 million to receive this vaccine.
Right.
Because, you got to look at the criteria based on, are you a health worker? Are you a senior? Are you, do you have any specific issues? But want to say a big shout out to Pablo de la Hoya and Peter Bittner from Seattle. Question: what's the key to staying sane as parents in the daily life until the vaccine? Well, flexibility. I think for me, your kid's a little bit older, Rich. It's like, you got to be flexible. You got to be flexible. You got to understand. It's like, I stay on my son about keeping that mask over his nose.
I think it goes beyond also the what you have to do as far as keeping them healthy. It's also what you have to do to keep them engaged and to understand that this is all temporary. They are, and none of us, no child, which of course we all were at one time, is going to understand at the time that what you're going through now will be something you'll talk about when you're older, when you're an adult, when you're 40. Like, oh yeah, I remember when we had COVID-19 and all the things we had to do to get through it. What you want to do to stay sane until there's a vaccine is whatever you've been doing. I mean, it should make it a little easier knowing that, all right, there is hope. Depending on the age of your children. I mean, I don't envy anyone who's got, a toddler or a sub toddler right now, because yeah, you've got to be there engaged with them 24/7. You look forward to them going to sleep. But you can also use this as time to really, engage and get to know your child. I mean, there's people, let's face it, everyone's got to work. And if you're one of the fortunate ones where one of the parents can be home and one of the parents can work, that's great. You're going to bond, they're going to build that relationship. But now, we're all at home. If we've got a position that allows us to be, or, if unemployed, God forbid. But use this time just to get to know your child. Use this time to bond with your child. I mean, no matter what happens with COVID, you can still go outside. I mean, you've got a little one. Let's
Yeah.
say you got a toddler. You can go out. You can go to the park. You can still have fun. You can still do things with them. Or you just get out and get air. Show them things that you may think they may not have been exposed to before. This is the time for sure. Reading books, build that movie library. Pick something to watch, and teaching. You can do the job, and I guess need to do the job, right? If they're not in school 5 days a week like they used to be, and no one is, you can pick up that role of teacher and little things. I'm not saying, sit there and put up a desk and put a chalkboard up and start going over the basics, but informally you can do it, and you can turn this negative into a huge positive, because again, they're going to remember this in a
For the
year,
rest
in
of their
2 years,
lives.
and for the rest of their lives. And you can very easily make it something that they remember with good feelings instead of with dread.
It's true. Pablo chimes in and says, I'm pretty worried about how people are reacting to the second dose. Not looking forward to being in bed all day.
I heard something about that as well. Basically, yeah, especially for like 2 or 3 days, you feel like you got the flu and you're ill. I have no idea what to say to that. I feel the same way, Pablo. I mean, I don't, luckily have not gotten it, so I don't know what it felt like. Don't want that feeling. However, I'd rather be down for a day or two,
That's
knowing that
true.
it's temporary and knowing why I'm down for that day or two, than living with the fear and concern of catching it and not knowing. Um, and you just have to hope that not, people may feel or be apprehensive about receiving it and getting those and having those side effects. But you got to hope that people don't, really say, no, I'm not going to take it. And because
That's
of
the
that
worst
reason,
possible thing.
you
That's
can't
the
do that.
worst option out there, is to say, I don't want to get into anti-vaxxers. I want to stay
Yeah,
positive
not going there.
because we got to get to the. In my head, you got to get to 70%. So you got to get to 231.
Right.
You got to get to 231. 231 gets you 231 million.
Million, right. That gets you to 70%. And again, that's that herd, quote unquote, herd immunity number
Right.
that we want to reach. I don't know. It's, who was it that made the joke? You want to get people to take it, offer them money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's. I heard something, and this is not fact checked or anything else like that, but I heard it's going to cost the everyone 85 cents.
Right, the 85-cent number. Now, I don't know if that was the number that that Pfizer and the government have contracted at per dose, because that's already covered. That's why it's not going to cost Americans anything to get it. It's already been paid for. But I don't know if that 85-cent number was the dosage cost that is being charged to the government, or if that's the dosage cost that if you go on your own to your provider, after said period, and how much, and that's the amount that it'll cost you. I'm not sure which it is, but regardless, Pfizer, Moderna, what's the other big one? That is this like Novartis, I think it is, or whichever the other manufacturer. They all want to get paid and deserve to get paid. Thank you.
That's the other one that started the trials and stopped the trials, right. And but when you think about it all together, the number of people being tested is still a small number
in the scheme of things. Yeah,
when you look at when you sit here, AstraZeneca. Okay,
yeah, thanks, Jayhawk.
All right, thanks, Jayhawk. When you look at the overall number, and you look at the overall demographics,
right?
Were kids included? Were minorities included? Yes, was specific age ranges included, and you kind of look at the overall number, and then you take that and you have to apply it against that 231 number. That's where I get a little nervous.
Yeah. I don't know. So you have to think just the ways that statistics work, right? Even though you're not breaking down demographically the testing, you're still doing it in a universal way, right? So it's just being tested across the board across the US. So some of that will average itself out. You'll have a high number of whatever the number of tests that were done in we'll say in lower income areas that we know already are being stricken or being hit harder than this. Those numbers will be higher, but then you'll have the testing that's done out in the Midwest, where there's just less transmission possibilities and where there's a less of an impact, and that'll average out into the overall numbers. But something that I think you mentioned before, that just as important, or actually more important than the positivity rate, is the hospitalization rate, because that's where we can look and say, all right, well, this X amount of number of people who are affected or who are positive, but then take that percentage and then look at the number of people in hospitals and say, all right, this is the percentage of those who are positive who we can expect to be seriously negatively impacted. And watching that number is the number we got to be concerned with as far as wave 2, which is already here.
Do you remember when we dropped below 50,000, the hospitalization rate, and then it seems like you blinked your eye and it became 98,000.
Yep.
Next thing you know, it's at 105,000. And then, along with that, you have, I hate to say it, but the refrigerated trucks outside of these hospitals.
Yeah.
And, you're above capacity. Over by me, NYU Hospital, believe it or not, I had a friend who wanted to, I don't know, they weren't feeling well.
Mm-hmm.
Hospitals at capacity. They had to turn them away.
Wow. This shouldn't be a surprise now, for those out there. Ted and I are both New Yorkers. We're both actually on Long Island. So we have, and I say, again, politics notwithstanding, I say we are lucky where we live because our governor took it very seriously because he had to, because he was on the front line and tried to enforce and put in place as many policies as possible to protect the citizens. Forget your politics. So we've got a lot of information that we should have learned from and taken away, right? Because, we went from being the worst, hardest affected, most stressed infrastructure to being to the point where, we could say, all right, you can take back the USS Cole. We don't need it. Thank you. Or we can disassemble the hospitals that were put together, like at the Javits Center. We don't need it now. Thank you. And we had the numbers going down. In some way, I wonder if human nature is at fault for what we're seeing now, because it was almost like, oh, okay, so we just did this. We shut completely down for 2 or 3 weeks, and no one went outside or did anything. And now we can go back outside because things are better. And look, the numbers are all down, so it's better. And we can go do whatever we want again and forget about wearing masks. We can forget everything. I think some people seem to just have forgotten how bad it is or how
It's
bad it
true.
was and how quickly it not I'm not going to say how quickly it can get back, how quickly it's getting back. And it's not being focused on as much, it seems, even in the media, of like things you're mentioning. Hospitals are getting up to capacity again.
Right.
And for a hospital to have to turn someone away, that's almost unheard of. So we don't want to get back to where we were. We don't want to get back to, all right, shut the entire city down, shut the entire state down, no one go out, no one do anything. But if people don't want to listen, we're going to be back there again.
It's true. Hey, I want to switch gears really quick. This is Late Night Parents, Rich Valdez and Ted Hicks. It's been a while. Want to get your thoughts on the government, U.S. government, telling Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook it's time to sell Instagram and WhatsApp, and because over the summer the big project was messaging and tying that messaging all together.
Mm-hmm.
Now they're saying, if you look at Proposition 230, hey, they're saying let's break it up. Inevitable.
I wouldn't have said inevitable until everything we had with the last election. I think this is really tied into all the the fake news that was put out there on both sides. I think this is a reaction to the government understanding that this company has much more control or input or effect on what people are thinking, how people are going to act, on how they're going to vote than they ever thought they would.
Okay.
And just how easy it is for someone to put something out there that's false information and rile up their troops and rile up their, I don't even want to say constituents. Well, I'm going to leave it at rile up their troops to a frenzy in believing whatever it was that was put out there. And the worst part about it being that whatever they say gets automatically believed by a certain percentage of people just because they read it out there, and then they take it as gospel and they believe it, and then they act upon it or don't act upon it, however it's put. I don't think the government ever understood really just the impact that these platforms can and would have until now.
Yeah, impact, overall power, basically becoming like an oligarch,
Right.
operating as as much as they say they weren't news, you're operating as a news organization with 1.5 or close to 2 billion journalists that are unchecked.
Right. And that's the thing. I mean, I get their argument in saying that they're not a news organization because they don't say anything. They don't put any information out there. They're almost not even the publisher. They're just the media by which the information gets disseminated.
Yeah, it's just the media.
Yeah, but they've got to understand that they do have responsibility when inaccurate information like that is put out there. And then you look kind of, it almost, I'm trying to relate it to something similar with AT&T back in the 80s. And when there was basically one phone company where everything was put through. AT&T managed long distance, AT&T managed your phone and in your house, all the way across your communications across the country and across the world. And the government said, nah, that's too much, we got to break you up. Now, if you look at that and the baby bells as they were back then in the 80s, when everything got broken up and it was regional, and then you had the one piece of AT&T that remained as the long distance company. What has happened over the last 30 years? It's almost all back together as one. Half the baby bells merged into others. They became from 7 to like 3, which I think is even less now. AT&T is still the monster that it was, and it's grown back again. So, it kind of corrected itself. I see some of this same thing happening over time. Yeah, let's say they break it up, right? Let's go out there. Fine.
Okay.
Facebook just becomes a social media platform again, but there's going to be regulations that come down on that, which that might be the whole side thing here.
It has to.
Mhm. I think there's more to it.
When you have a tool that's in 190 countries,
Right.
come on.
Right. So
Right.
how do you regulate it? And what do you enforce them to then become the editors? Do you force them to say, all right, you can provide this service to the billions of people that you do, but you have to monitor it and do your best to ensure that no one tells a lie on the service? I mean, how do you do that? How do you make them responsible for that? And then there's the other pieces of it. Let's go to the WhatsApp side of it, because everyone loved that because it's encrypted and it's more private and everything else. You're just letting people talk there. So what's to regulate?
Well, I mean, you're allowing potentially some seedy characters that could have their conversations using that app.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, it's even when they say it is monitored, is it really monitored when you look at the overall user base?
Right.
I remember like maybe 3 or 4 years ago, we did a show and we were talking about Facebook Live. And remember at the time, it was like maybe 2016, 2015, we were talking about, there was a violent crime performed on Facebook Live. And then we got into who's monitoring this.
Yes.
And then at the time, Zuckerberg said, hey, we're going to hire 3,000 people. And I'm looking at the overall number. I'm like, but you got 1 billion accounts.
Yeah.
That can go live at any given time.
I wouldn't even pretend to have the answer to that question. I don't know. What do you do? I mean, again, we're at a time here that, never been at before, where the level of communications possible globally has never been this high. I mean, right now you could basically communicate with anyone on the other side of the planet in a couple of clicks.
Yes.
Privately or not privately. And then you also have to look at, with this information crossing borders, the rules and regulations we have in the United States are much more broad and much more free than the rules in other countries. And do you make that the responsibility of regional, since we're talking about Facebook, I'm just going to say Facebook as a name, but there's the regional provider to monitor based upon their rules? Or is this a company-wide thing? Or do you have to break it down then and say, all right, well, it's Facebook US and then Facebook Europe and Facebook China, Facebook Russia, and they all have to operate separately? Do you force them to break it up like that? Just the rabbit hole that they're going to have to go down when they start these conversations is unbelievable. But I don't know where it all ends. What do we end up with when they come to whatever conclusions and rules that they come up with? I don't know.
That will remain to be seen. We'll keep an eye on it. Hey, last bit of piece, last segment on this. What were your thoughts when you heard Wonder Woman 1984 was going to HBO Max? Was your thought with Warner, Time Warner, or Warner Group, whatever they're called nowadays, but ultimately it's AT&T deciding, hey, you know what, we're not going to hold these movies in the queue, we're going to release them and we're going to put them on HBO Max for 30 days and then pull them off for it to be released in the movie theaters. Are you okay with saying, is this death of the movie theater, or is this just dealing with COVID-19 right now? What are your overall thoughts on it?
Well, to answer what I thought about it when I heard about it, I'm okay with it. I think it's a good business move. I'm not going to blame the death. I won't blame the death of the movie theater or the beginning of the death of the movie theaters on this. I will say it is being rushed because of COVID. So, movie theater numbers were already dropping. It's getting harder and harder to justify how much you walk in there for your popcorn, your soda, your tickets. If you want to go with just a family of four, you're going to spend $100 just to go see the theater, right? It's getting harder to justify that.
I gotta interject. That's why I religiously I always scream matinee.
I know you are the matinee man. You can get in there and do it for 50. but this has been coming for a while. I think that you'll see this funny. I think it might have a reverse effect. The smaller theaters will probably stick around.
Okay.
Because especially the ones that are just like the community theaters, or they show the older films, or the cultural theaters. I think those will be fine. I think the less shows or the less screens per theater will also have an effect. If you got one theater that's showing maybe two huge hits on the biggest screens in full IMAX or full Dolby, full surround, and giving you the full dining experience, I think you can get some of those to survive. But the big 15, 11, 10, the multiplexes like that, I think those guys are in trouble.
I just want to interject and ask you, do you need the movie theater for anything outside of Marvel? Like the rom-com,
No. It's and I think sure, you have those people who just go to the movies just to see whatever movie when they can. I know for the last decade or more, I have only I'm going to the theater to see a film that's going to give me an experience that I only want to get in the theaters. I want to see, like you're saying, it's to go to see the Marvel flick where you're going to have the explosions, the sounds, the big screen, everything you want in a theater experience. It's going from going to the movies to going to the theater for that. And also take into account that sure, no longer are we sitting at home looking at 19-inch boxes in the living room,
right,
from halfway across.
Trinitron.
Exactly. No more. I mean, everyone's you can sit there and throw that 65 on your wall for less than $500, and then throw a sound system in there, and you can have a true theater experience for like $1,000.
Yes.
And then sure, it comes out, and sure, do what I still do. Yes, I still do Blu-rays because of the experience.
Okay.
But you do that, you've got a full theater experience, and you're happy, and you're not spending that money. It can pay for itself if you're a regular theater goer within a couple of years easily. But theaters will never fully go away.
No.
That's just it. But yeah, I think we're looking at the beginning of the end of the big multiplexes.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. I think we were going down this path regardless, because think of nowadays, you can go to the movie theater, pay tons of money, or if that digital subscription could be delivered to your device at home, to your screen. I mean, your OLED for the next 24 hours, and you can watch it as many times as you want, or you just purchase the experience for $39.99 or whatever the case is,
right?
And you have it digitally,
right?
And you have it right then and there. I think we're there. As I said before, if it's not Star Wars, Avatar, Marvel, DC, do you really need to see it on the big screen?
No, I don't. I mean, sure, it's going to be a date night with the wife when she wants to go see something like that.
Okay.
But it's that kind of situation. But you're right. You're still going to get me every time there's a Star Wars movie released or a Marvel flick. Not so much a DC flick, sorry.
Last question for you is, what are you streaming right now?
So I'm just catching up on some things. I have been watching the show that was recently canceled, The Good Place. Hilarious. Wow. Hilarious show. It's only, I think, either 4 or 5 seasons.
Yes.
Ted Danson's the lead male in it. Funny show. I listened to a podcast where he was being interviewed and he mentioned it and they were talking about it. And I said, oh, let me check that out. Funny show. So that's the biggest thing I've been watching. Yeah, that's it. Otherwise, I've been doing, the computer gaming that I do. Microsoft Flight Simulator came out recently and this is like the first big game to leverage Azure. So they've got the entire globe mapped and you can now fly this thing in full high def, and it is the closest thing to looking like reality that you can imagine. So you can even fly over your house. So I mean, I do that kind of stuff and looking at movies. Yeah, that's it.
I just started, myself and the missus just started binge watching the Undoing.
I am 3 episodes into that.
We watched the first 2 episodes last night. Pretty good so far.
Yeah.
Pretty good so far. Outside of that, is there any? I don't want to talk Mandalorian with you yet.
Have you seen? So, like you said, there's 2 more episodes. So, okay. I really thought this last episode felt like a final episode.
It felt like a final episode.
Yeah. So I'm glad I'm wrong.
Yeah. No, there's 2 more. And I guess for next time, I'll tell you about the adventure of Black Friday.
Yes. Uh-oh. Black Friday adventure?
Black Friday adventure, because I told my son he wanted the PlayStation 5.
Mm-hmm.
We found the GameStop right in the neighborhood. And I told him, okay, store opens at 7 o'clock. We got to be there online at 6 o'clock, maybe even before.
Mm-hmm.
Comes downstairs at 6:45. And I'm laughing at him. Totally laughing at him. Because I was like, this is the best you can offer. So we drove over there. You got the police there. You got the line as long as can be, spilling out into the streets. And of course, the location, the GameStop location, only had 4 Xboxes. And it was like I kind of start thinking about the meme or the GIF of the little boy with the tears coming down the side of his eye.
that was Nemo.
Yes.
You look over, you just see him looking up, and you're like, I messed up, Dad.
But I told him, I said, listen, you're playing yourself. But so that was our Black Friday, Cyber Monday.
See, he's not old enough to appreciate standing online for the latest version of Microsoft Windows to come out.
Right. I wanted him to have that experience. So I was like, come on, let's go on out there. I was like, let's see. But like I said, I told him, if you don't do it early enough, you're going to be done.
Mm-hmm. Early enough at 4 a.m. or spending the night.
I saw people out there spending, and I'm like, it's not that serious.
Oh.
It's not that serious. All right, and it's been great to use this tool.
Yep.
HAPS. It's a great tool which allows you to connect to all your various social media connections. The digital studio, all online. Everything's online with this tool. You can go to haps.tv, HAPPS.tv to sign up, get involved, live stream, talk about whatever you want to talk about.
Download the app.
And you're ready to
go. Yep. And subscribe to us, please. We will be back on a regular basis. This is pretty good. First time using it here. I'd like to see some more of the features, see what other capabilities that it has. But subscribe to us, support us. Those who sent some awards, thank you very much. We appreciate it. We are first timers, so thank you, Peter, and everyone else who joined us, had questions. We hope we get to see you again soon. We will be back. We'll be around. And if you have anything you'd like us to discuss, any comments, any topics you'd like, any other questions, please send them to us. We'll answer them. Absolutely.
All right. Talk to you later.
All right. Have a great night, everybody.